Hey everybody, and welcome to part 2 of the Diamond Heights Park playthrough. So happy belated 2024 to everyone. I took a bit of downtime myself over the last month or so, but feeling pretty refreshed now and back up and running. So yeah, looking forward to getting stuck back into some RCT again. So the last video we started off Diamond Heights and we made some pretty good progress and filled in quite a large portion of the map, including the entrance area with a little car ride. And we also made some pretty major modifications to the miniature railway, just to make it a little bit more practical and open up that little bit of space for other rides near the entrance of the park. We also made some minor changes to the log flume Snake River Falls. Just added a couple extra station pieces and maybe an extra drop or two as well. We also added quite a big wooden coaster to the hill on the left hand side of the entrance as you walk in, and then a large water slide in the more central hill near Arachnophobia, that steel mini coaster. I did a fair bit of decorating in amongst the new rides, but more of a spread out style, unlike Gentle Glen, which was the previous series we did. Mainly just because we've got a lot more space to fill out in the map this time, and I won't be able to spend as much time doing, filling in every single tile with details. And we also added a pirate ship across from the station of Arachnophobia. Anyway, onto the build for part 2. So the first thing we did was add a little boat hire, which I cordoned off using fences along the water. It's just across from the wooden coaster. So I added the fences by doing a bit of landscaping underneath the water, so that the raised edge of the tile would enable you to sit a fence on it. It's kind of a weird little realization I came to not too long ago. I obviously know you can do this in RCT2 and RCT Classic just by raising scenery, but yeah, didn't realize you could do this in RCT1 just with a bit of landscaping there. So yeah, I mainly just wanted to keep I wanted it like a untracked boat hire. So I wanted the guests to be able to like roam around the water, but I wanted to kind of restrict off the area. And I think this is kind of reminiscent of theme parks where they have boat hires, I believe. I then moved over to near the racing coasters and carousel and added a twist or scrambled eggs, and then I did a bit of landscaping to connect the main body of water to the little pond near the station of the railway, which was again near the carousel. I also did a slight reroute of the railway there too. Added a little bit of light foliage around the riverbank and also along the path that I introduced there, just because I think it's good for pathfinding to add that little bit of extra pathing there. I called the twist Grimble's Scrambler, kind of paying homage to the carousel. I have no idea who Grimble is, but it feels like a pretty iconic name to me, just because of that carousel. I also added the park's first toilet near Arachnophobia too. I then decided to put a Ferris wheel at the base of the hill at the water, kind of adjacent to the pirate ship. And then after a bit of park housekeeping with handymen and mechanics, it was then time to get stuck into the major project for this episode, which was a large inverted coaster. So this took a little bit of time to figure out, because the space was quite a unique one to work with, I guess. I basically wanted to take up this entire spot of the map, as it wasn't going to be too practical to get pathing and kind of flat rides over here. So yeah, I wanted it to take up the majority of the land and have a few kind of elements that kind of went over the water as well. But I didn't want it to infringe too much on the racing looping coasters. So yeah, I kind of started the station near the boat hire and near that new station of the miniature railway that we introduced last episode. And then I went into a diagonal lift hill just for some variety. I think it's important when you've got lots of coasters in your park, you don't want them all. You don't want all the lift hills like running along the grid. I think it's good to have at least one of your coasters with a diagonal lift hill, especially when you got 4 or 5 in the park. And I think the lift hill also follows the kind of shape of the land in that area too. So yeah, I think it turned out pretty well. After that lift hill, it goes into a swooping drop into an inline twist with a turnaround into a cobra roll, then ducks underground again into a vertical loop, which I originally placed after the first drop, but I thought it looked nicer after the cobra roll, and maybe a bit more of an original layout, because I think a lot of the inverted coasters I've seen, they kind of start off with a vertical loop, then into an inline twist. So yeah, I just wanted to mix it up a little bit. And I think the two vertical loops next to each other didn't look that good, and I'm sure the intensity rating would have been through the roof if I introduced another loop to this layout. After a high-speed turn, after the loop, we then go into a corkscrew, and then a series of turns later, including one that knots around the first drop, we head into another corkscrew, and then a few more turns into a helix, into the brake run. It was a lot of fun putting this together. I played around with a few layout ideas off camera for a while before I did this recording, so I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted, and this of course was an effort to save myself some scenario building time. Had to make a few changes to the boat hire. I first took away, I basically gave it a small track piece to get the boats out into the main body of water, and then I had another one to kind of to guide the guests back into the station, but you may have experienced this, like sometimes the boats get stuck at that piece just before the station platform, so I removed that. But then I found when I removed that, the guests couldn't actually find their way back into the station platform at all, which was a bit strange. Might have something to do with the fences that I put in there, but yeah. I ended up putting back that last little piece at the end of the station platform, and I'll just take my chances with guests getting stuck. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but I can just reset the ride if it does. Then went back to the inverter coaster and did a lot of landscaping, since I had created so many tunnels and did just a lot of general landscaping to get the coaster in. Had a lot of tidy up to do, added a lot of the rocky surfaces just in the areas where I had done landscaping, especially in the areas just approaching a tunnel. I think it looks pretty good when you do that, actually. In an effort to keep kind of consistent with the phobia style of naming convention of the rides, I called this one, now this is a mouthful, anapodophobia, which apparently is a fear of being upside down. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty appropriate name for this coaster, as there's like 6 or 7 inversions, I think. Took me a few attempts to settle on a color for the coaster that I was happy with. First I went with like yellow track and black supports, but then I ended up going with kind of the light purple. I think it's sort of lavender or lilac, I guess. And yeah, I've been using this this color quite a lot, particularly for the steel or looping coaster tracks. I think with that Schwarzkopf style track, that color looks really good, but yeah, I think it looks pretty good for the inverted coaster too. Something I have been paying a bit more attention on these days is just having a variety of coaster colors in the park. It's just I can't remember who I picked it up from. It might have been Silverette. He whenever he did park playthroughs, he was one of the things he liked to do is make sure there was a nice variety of colors, and yeah, I think it does pay dividends, was when you zoom out. When you zoom out and you see the park from kind of higher up, if you like, it does. I think it does make it look better when you got a variety. It doesn't really make sense to have like a red coaster right next to another red coaster or something like that, for example. So yeah, anyway, I really like the inverted coaster. Unfortunately, the stats are kind of high across the board. It does have a very high excitement rating, but it also has a very high intensity and also very high nausea. So the amount of guests that actually ride it is pretty small, because even with guests with a more than 4 intensity preference, if they've got a no or low nausea tolerance, then they won't even ride it either. So that, combined with the fact that I made the price $19, yeah, just meant the amount of throughput it had was actually quite low. But it's all good. I think once my income kind of, once I steady the ship on the income, I can maybe lower the price of that so more people can ride it. I added an observation tower in the little bit of land just next to the inverted coaster. Then went back to kind of near the entrance of the park and added a swinging inverter ship, which I thought was perfect for this little pocket of space, as there wasn't too many rides in this area, and we also had a pretty limited selection of thrill rides over in this side of the park. So yeah, the swinging inverter ship has very good stats, like 3s and 4s across the board. So just about every guest will ride that, which is great. They're always pretty popular rides. Then went back to near the racing looping coasters and added a freefall, creatively named acrophobia, which of course is a fear of heights. It's not a particularly tall freefall. I didn't want it completely dominating the landscape, but yeah, definitely satisfies the thrill seekers requirements, I think. I was gonna then add another flat ride on the other side of the path, on the other side of the hill, but I thought with a bit of extra space, a small go-karts track might work. So I gave that a go, and it turned out pretty nicely. Made a simple layout that kind of tunnels under the hill. Had to do a little bit of landscaping around the place to make sure it fit in nicely. I didn't want it, sitting high off the ground at any one point. So yeah, just wanted to make sure it was pretty much at ground level for the whole track. But after a bit of landscaping, tidy up and decorating, I think it turned out quite nicely. I think it was during the construction of the go-karts I unlocked the monorail, which I wanted to add in as another transport ride for the park. So you may have noticed a bit earlier in the episode I put a elevated train track as sort of a placeholder for this. So yeah, this just goes from near the twist, meanders in and around the Ferris wheel, hops over one of the islands next to the observation tower, and then stops near the wooden wild mine ride, Doppelganger. There wasn't really a whole lot of logic behind the layout of the ride. I just thought it would be a fun little addition to the park. And yeah, just wanted to introduce some more curves and angles in there as well. I think it looks better having it kind of flow through some wide turns rather than just have it in a long straight section. Although in a real life park, you might expect a few more longer straight sections of track for this sort of ride. But yeah, it's all good. I just wanted to get something that would actually bring some more guests into the back of the park, because yeah, I've got some plans to add some rides in there probably next episode. I also think it would be a reasonably scenic ride for the guests. Oh yeah, and I also I really like the look of those small monorail cars. It's just I don't know, something very nostalgic about them. I just think I definitely prefer the look of them over the large bulky covered cars. I have noticed they move on the track a little bit slower than the big covered cars, but that's perfectly fine with me. By this time, I had maxed out the loan, and I was still waiting for those advertising campaigns to kick in to get more guests into the park, so finances were pretty slim at this point, but they were slowly starting to creep back up, and once I did, I was able to go back and do some decorating near the go-karts and the freefall. Added a bit of pathing kind of in the center of the go-kart track. At first it was just kind of as a nice viewing point for the go-karts, but then I realized that it would also probably provide a pretty good view of the racing looping coasters of those two vertical loops. So that was a happy little accident. It was then about time that I provided some more facilities around the park, so I threw in a bunch of toilets just kind of scattered around the park. As well as one more food stall in a chip shop near the observation tower. And this was followed by some decorating around some areas that have been kind of neglected for a while, including some fencing near the inverted coaster and some foliage around the observation tower as well. But anyway, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you very much, and cheers. Bye.